2, 3. All right, then. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have with us representative from... Are you a state rep? What are you?
I'm a nobody right now. I'm just a guy.
You're a nobody.
I'm just a guy who got his business flooded, and I found out what was going on in the state, and it was wrong, and my representative wasn't representing me, and I had some people encourage me to run, and it took me about 9 weeks to get used to that, and when I did, I threw my hat in the ring.
All right, so you're running for office, and your family owns an airport. Where is the airport?
It's east of Memphis, about 3 miles into the next county, which would be Fayette County. There was an old airport here from the 1940s, and my father, who was a world-renowned aviation man, he's the guy who identified, located the lost squadron under the Greenland ice cap. It's a History Channel special. He's the one who found those, and he wanted a small place where kids could go and learn to fly that was outside of the control zone. And he had 3 boys and decided he would build his own place. So he went in with a group of 10 people, and they bought this old strip, is basically what it was, and did a whole lot of improvements on it and built buildings, and now we have about 45 aircraft out here.
Wow. And this is a federal airport?
It's what's called a general aviation airport. It's federally numbered, 54M. It's the Wolf River Airport. It has a federal number on it. It serves as a training place for the 101st Airborne out of Fort Campbell, Kentucky. They're the copters that took SEAL Team 6 to get Osama bin Laden. So they come out, they do some operations here. We service domestic traffic and local traffic, and then emergency helicopters, FEMA, things like that.
Okay. Now, I'm learning some things about Tennessee government that I wasn't aware of. Some unusual stuff that's just kind of freaked me out, because I'm a real believer in land use freedom. You know, people being able to use their property the way they see fit, as long as they're not harming somebody else, and property rights, I guess people refer to them as. And I'm noticing the government finding new ways to encroach on people's property rights all the time. And more importantly, it seems like there's a corrupt nature to that. Somehow behind the scenes, you always find some grubby little politician with his hand in the cookie jar. And it seems like you've got a whole nest of really unusual circumstances there centering around your airport and water rights and this mitigation of streams, or whatever it's called. It's stuff that's beyond my ability to comprehend. It almost sounds like nobody would want to put it in the news because it's too complex. Sounds like one of those crazy conspiracy theories. But there's something going on in Tennessee. What is this streams mitigation and in lieu of and tax stuff and all that? I'm trying to get a grip of. This is not something the average guy just on the street reads a news article and says, "Oh, I get that." Can you give me just a simple way to understand what the heck's going on?
Well, in answer to your question, a simple way, no, I don't think I can. And had I not lived it, I wouldn't have believed it. It was part of a UN Agenda 21. And let me tell you, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't jump on the back of every train that runs by, but this is real. This is in the United States. This is in my neighborhood. This is the reason that I'm running for state senator. Because what happened here was that my business got flooded, in short. My airport got flooded. And when it got flooded, we did some due diligence on finding out how they got their permits. Because Tennessee has some great water laws, and the Federal Clean Water Act is very clear and thorough in addressing water situations. But we learned that these people had essentially bought their permits, which should be illegal. It was illegal. To do what they were doing in the streams was certainly illegal.
Well, what do you mean by bought their permits?
Well, there's a program called mitigation. And what mitigation is basically a trade-off between development and nature. So that if you're going to go in and build a development and you need to impact some sort of nature, whether it's wetlands or whether it's a stream, you can find ways to offset what you're doing with your development. So if you impact 100 feet of stream somewhere, then the federal rule is no net loss. Now, those three words are very specific and key words in this, because no net loss means that if you have 100 feet of stream that you impact, then you need to fix that 100 feet of stream. You need to move it, or you need to fix it somewhere else. Right. What's happening in Tennessee is that rather than doing no net loss, they're doing what's called in lieu fee. And to me, in lieu fee means in lieu of you doing the no net loss, you pay me the fee. And the state of Tennessee, that's what they're doing. They're just taking a fee rather than doing all of the work that they're supposed to do according to the federal rules on mitigation and the Federal Clean Water Act. Rather than doing that, they're just taking a fee for these impacted waterways. When wetland mitigation, which is legal, mitigation is legal, and when it came down to the states in 2002, specifically to Tennessee is what I'm talking about, when it came down to Tennessee in 2002 from the federal government, it was mandated that it be under the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, and that the agency establish a Tennessee Wildlife Resources Foundation, and that foundation was to administrate the mitigation program. Now, mitigation credits, as they're called, they're basically an acre apiece, and they cost $40,000. So you're exactly right. It's not like I'm going to be able to go out and impact a whole bunch of wildlife or nature and then be able to go buy 2 or 3 or 4 credits for $120,000 or $160,000. These are for the big boys who come in, and in my case, I have 2 streams upstream from me. They both come down and converge on my property. As the crow flies, they're about 1 mile to 1.5 miles away. But with the curvature of the streams, the natural bend of the streams, it's about 3 miles of stream. Well, these entities bought, in one case, 4,900 feet of stream, and in another case, 3,600 feet of stream, and paid money into a bank account for tearing up those streams, for causing damage to those streams. Rather than mitigate, well, that was their mitigation, but rather than even consider downstream use or downstream impacts, what they did is they just took the money and they put it in an account. The key here in Tennessee is that they took the money and they put it in an account that was not consistent with what the federal government had agreed with them to do in 2002 when mitigation came down to the state. What they did is they took that money and they put it in a private bank account off the books of the state of Tennessee. And that bank account has $13 million in it currently, and has had over $56 million run through that bank account. So instead of doing the no net loss provision, what they're doing is the in lieu fee. You pay us the money, and we take the money and put it in the off the books account. There's no cap on how much nature they can tear up. And in this case, they bought 4,600 feet of stream, but there's 3 miles of stream. Right. So they bought 4,600 feet of it, and they're tearing up the whole thing on both streams all the way to the river. It's unbelievable.
Right. So how does that impact neighboring properties?
Well, my neighbor on the east lost his stream flow for one of the streams that converges on me, comes across his property. He lost his stream flow to a wetland. He's currently in front of a water board of the state of Tennessee trying to rectify that impact. On the other side, my other stream has an immense amount more of flow. When you take 1 inch of rain off a 300-acre parcel of land, which is what this is, 1 inch of rain will produce 500,000 gallons of stormwater runoff. When you hard surface that same 300 acres, that 1 inch of rain now provides 8 million gallons of stormwater runoff.
Oh, wow.
So just like my engineers told me, I was 8 inches underwater. That was the first impact. The second impact is that the federal limit on turbidity, and turbidity is basically in layman's terms, I'm learning all about this myself. In layman's terms, it's the ability to shine light through the water to see the suspended solids in the water, how polluted it is.
Right.
Federal limit's 280. We bought a machine to test the waters and check the impact, see how bad it was on us. Our machine goes to 4,000. Our numbers were regularly in the 2,500s, 3,200s, 3,500s until they started going off of the machine. We had our machine checked and calibrated and called the factory to make sure that our machine was correct, and it was. Then we got an official to come out, a certified man to come out and take certified stream readings, because ours were going to be no good if we had to have litigation. He was getting the same readings we were. Come to learn later, now keep in mind the federal limit is 280 units. Now we find that their own readings from the Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation are over 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, 10,000, 12,000, 14,000. Now, this thing's built on a Memphis aquifer feeder, and they're running 14,000 NTU polluted water straight into the watershed. It's unbelievable.
And that ends up in your drinking water. Either you have to clean that up, which has an expense attached, or people are going to get that garbage in their drinking water. And if you're operating off of a well, you're probably sucking that stuff in.
I can't drink out of my well anymore. I've had to go to strictly bottled water in the large containers. I can't drink out of the well. Started making it sick to drink out of the well.
And in a normal situation, this is not like carbon tax credits where you're buying the right to, produce some ethereal thing called carbon. This is real water, real aquifers, real people, real wells, real streams, and they're essentially buying their way around the regulation. And as I understand it, I know you had an attorney or somebody. It was before a thing. I got a little sheet of paper here. I was reading. They were talking about this ILF and all that. And what is this ILF thing? What is that?
Well, that's the in lieu fee.
Okay.
That's the in lieu fee program.
So where does that money go?
That's a good question. Right now, my brother and I exposed that program. They told us we were crazy. The program didn't exist. They refused to give us the documents. We went to the Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation field office here. They refused to give us the documents. They pulled them back to Nashville and told us we couldn't have them. We went to Nashville to get them, and they told us they were in Memphis. We went back over to the Memphis field office to get them again, and we went in, and they told us their copy machine wasn't working. So we could look at them, but we couldn't copy them. But fortunately, my brother's a pretty well-prepared man. He made a good Boy Scout. He took his copy machine with him, and so he copied all of the documents. The program does exist. If you went to the Tennessee state government and you watch the House Environment Conservation meetings, this is Senate Bill 2211. House Bill 2349. We didn't find out about it till it got into the House Environment Conservation meetings. And if you watch the state's attorney come up and repeatedly represent that this program and this process was codified when it wasn't, it will make you sick, because repeatedly, time after time after time, he said this program was in the code, it's in the code, it's in the code. It's not in the code. This is an illegal process of taking money and putting that money in an off the books bank account, and nobody knows what they're doing with it. They put $5.4 million into Fannie Mae. They're unregulated. So the state says it's a state program, but it's under fiscal review as we speak. It's been outed. Everybody knows they know it's there, Now they're trying to figure out what they're going to do about it.
All right, but with whom does this originate? Where did this begin?
Well, it began with when mitigation came down to the states in 2002 from the federal government.
Okay.
It specified that the Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency was to create the foundation, and the foundation was to administer the mitigation. And they do administer mitigation through the foundation, but they administer wetlands mitigation and regular no net loss mitigation. It's their in lieu fee mitigation that they had to put off the books because it wasn't legal. So that's where the program originated with the Tennessee Extreme.
What happened was some bureaucrats somewhere went off the ranch and created a set of undocumented regulations to appease somebody who benefits from this.
Representative Andy Holt calls it extortion. The road builders benefit, the pipe builders benefit, anybody with a huge project to develop, a big developer benefits, but the little guy, and this is what I told Representative Holt when he said, I'll tell you what I've called it in every meeting, it's extortion. Well, it's not extortion if you're the big guy. If you're the big guy, it's the cost of doing business.
Right.
If you're the little guy, it's extortion.
I think Walmart